Welcome to CityCast Denver. I'm Paul Karolyi, and here's what Denver's talking about. Welcome again to CityCast Denver, the show about the city that celebrated five James Beard Award finalists this week. I'm looking around at some of these young fellas here in Denver, and I'm thinking, I wish we had more finalists for a Shave Your Beard Award. Anyway.
I mean, there's a couple of those guys on this podcast right now. It's crazy.
No finalists in the room.
It's crazy. Yeah. I shaved mine before I came.
Which was thoughtful of you.
You know, just to be courteous. I didn't want to outshine you guys. So.
Yeah. Well, here we are on the Friday show. We're looking back at the big news of the week. We're talking about the results of the special election in Lakewood, the big shakeup at RTD. We have a special guest for that. We're debuting a special members-only segment. Ooh. This is a new thing here with CityCast Denver. Ooh. We're going to be doing this every Friday, probably, sometimes, other times during the week. Basically, anytime.
Every week, though.
Anytime we want to invite you all back to the back fence in the backyard, just neighbors out in the backyard, and we share a little gossip.
Or if you're an apartment dweller like me, see you at the mailbox where we're going to complain about our landlord.
Is that where it happens? Not in the parking lot outside?
Well,
surreptitious, sharing a cigarette, gossiping?
Oh, I've never been offered, so maybe I'm the bad guy here.
All right. So, we're going to be doing that later in the show. And we do have a good topic. We had a really fun topic. There's a local neighborhood business group that is trying to develop their new, quote, brand identity. So we're going to talk about what that neighborhood is and what we think about that identity. To get that segment, you have to be a neighbor. You have to get the ad-free paid feed, which you can only get if you are a neighbor and you sign up at membership.citycast.fm. So do that right now, and then you can get the feed, get on it, delete this episode, get the other one, and get the bonus segment.
And then go back and listen to that other one, too.
I guess find the same spot. You want to listen to both.
Listen to both. We just inflate the numbers, please.
Cool.
Preferably on a second device. Thank you.
All right. You've heard her voice. Joining me is producer and Lakewood resident, Olivia Jewell. Hey, Olivia.
Hello. Are you doxing me? JK.
No, we're going to talk about it. Maybe your address. We'll see. If people want to hang out at that mailbox.
Hey, I will let you into the pool. Just saying.
Watch out. And joining us as well, a recent returnee, back again after his last appearance in February, quite a popular episode, RTD Director for District A, which is Central and South Denver. Welcome back, Chris Nicholson.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Obviously, enjoyed it so much last time that figured I would join you. It's not like there's anything going on with RTD this week. So, but happy to be here.
The message that I have been getting from you since your last appearance is that I did not rake you over the coals hard enough. And I think tougher would be more appropriate. Is that okay? Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Okay. You ready for it? Okay. Well, let's get into it. Our number one story, Debra Johnson, CEO and GM of RTD since 2020, is out. She is going to be leaving the office after Chris and the rest of the RTD board, apparently, according to reports, offered her a contract renewal. And she declined.
That's correct.
The news broke Wednesday morning. Tell us the whole story.
Yeah. So the way that contracts for the general manager and CEO work at RTD is that according to our procedures, 18 months before the end of a contract, which was December of last year, we start to have a conversation with the GM and CEO about contract renewal. And so that process went along, and we had some meetings in January and February, made a decision to offer a contract, and GM CEO Johnson decided to decline and pursue other opportunities.
So this is, of course, the context of this, and I think most people who are listening are probably familiar, but RTD is the public transit provider for the Denver Metro, and has been in hot water, getting headlines for the wrong reasons lately. Lots of talk about senior staff turnover, huge budget deficit, maintenance projects on multiple light rail lines at once, leading to ridership declines. There's a litany of these things, Chris. Why do you think she chose to decline the offer that you all extended?
Yeah, so I don't really want to speculate about someone else's motives on this kind of thing. What I will say, though, is I remember James C.O. Johnson said to me in one of our meetings, quoting, I think, the Bible, that there's a season for all things, basically. And so, she may have just felt that, this was the time for a new season in her life or something like that. But I really can't say.
That's fair. She did say in a letter to RTD staff this week, she said, recognizing my many years of service to RTD, as well as for personal and professional reasons is why she was leaving. Olivia, you and I met her back in December.
Yeah, I was like, we could speculate a little bit here.
Go ahead. Yeah. What did you think? You met her. We've been following this pretty closely.
Yeah.
Did you think this is how it was going to end?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. To me, like, I'm got my speculator on. I'm speculating now. So
okay, go ahead.
But my vibe when I read this, I was like, oh, this is one of those situations where they're like, here, you can take this contract and be like, you either say, okay, I will respectfully not accept it and leave gracefully, or we're going to can you. And I know Chris cannot say whether or not that's true. This is just in my head. I was like, oh, because she has been getting flack from people for a long time, and honestly, I'm just thinking about like in our interview where we asked her, about some of these comments she's made in the past about like, honestly,
not liking Denver, for example.
She did, to her credit, she did clarify. She said, I don't like cold and I don't like snow. And which this year, perfect year for Debra. No snow, no cold. But also, she said she doesn't think it's a foodie city. She doesn't like the food here. So I'm kind of like, yeah, it makes sense that she's going to move on and kind of like leave. And also RTD catches a lot of strays. So
yeah, the part of that interview that I thought about this week was when she was talking about the people, like the people of Denver and how their relationship with public transit.
She was kind of like, you got to want it. If you want it to work, people got to want it. And like, I don't know. I'm curious what you think about that, Chris, because like, I feel like to a certain extent, that's true. Like if it's a public program, you've got to utilize it for it to exist. But also, is that the blame for it sucking?
Well, so I would say first off that the board always enters into good faith negotiations where I've never seen or heard about us making an offer that was not a real offer on anything.
Okay.
It's a waste of time. The second thing that I'll say is, GMCO Johnson has done a lot of things really well over this time. She tackled, what'd you say?
Oh, CEO Johnson.
Yeah, GM CEO, General
GM
Manager.
CEO.
Yes.
I see what you've done.
That's that's
alphabet soup.
Exactly. Has done a lot of things really well. We were left with, after COVID, a massive backlog of unhandled maintenance issues, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. And she tackled that head on. Her choices when it came to refinancing our debt during the pandemic saved us significant amounts of money, tens of millions of dollars a year. The people who are working in senior staff right now are some of the most competent, talented individuals that I have ever worked with. The people she's been able to hire over the last couple of years are phenomenal. So I recognize the challenges that we've been facing, but I think there's a reason why so many people on the board have a positive opinion of her work and the experience that they've had working with her. So, I would say that, that speaks to why we made an offer.
Let's get into this. So the board is 15 seats, and it sounds like there was a conversation about whether or not to make this offer of the contract.
Yeah, that's what happens every time.
So how close was the vote?
Not going to tell you.
Okay. Why not?
Because that happened in executive session, and I am prohibited from talking about what happens in executive session.
What if we say numbers
I
and
heard
see
it
if
was
it's
very close. I heard it was a squeaker.
13?
You're not gonna get
14?
anything out of me.
12?
Sorry.
It wasn't a low ball offer. What was the offer? What was the number?
Yeah, how much were we going to increase her salary? Because she already makes nearly
more than 400,000.
Over 400K.
I cannot talk about.
She wasn't going to get more money?
Cannot talk about it.
I bet she was.
Maybe.
Or it wasn't enough.
What do you think about Olivia's point then? The other criticism of how Debra was kind of like talking about the people of Denver maybe not wanting to prioritize it, not wanting to pay the higher taxes to get the level of service they were they're expecting from their service provider? Is it the people's fault or was it her fault?
I mean, I think that if you look at this state, we've rejected tax increases for transportation twice. We've rejected tax increases for education, just in the last couple of years. This is not California. We don't always just approve more money for public transit.
That's for sure.
There's a big ballot measure that's going to come this year about the train. And I'll tell you, the people who care about it it is not a lock by any means, despite how long people have been talking about this and how much certain places really want it. So
when you say a lock, do you mean the RTD board's vote to put in money for it?
No, FRPR, the ballot measure to fund
you mean the
front
public
range
vote
passenger
that
rail.
hypothetically happens in the fall?
Whether we're willing to spend some money for cocoa.
Yeah.
Buy some cocoa. And I mean, I think it's a phenomenal.
I haven't heard that yet. There's going to be cocoa on cocoa.
Oh, you better
That's
believe
be
it.
A scene.
Yep.
Hey.
I've already talked to Sal Pace, who's running the Front Range Passenger Rail District. I'm like, you got to have a dining car. You got to have a dining car.
Who's going to be the concessionaire? Who's going to get that contract?
I mean, look, they haven't made any decisions about that yet, but there's a reason why Amtrak tends to run like all of those lines in the U.S.
So they have their own deals.
Well, there's just a bunch of things that make it easier to make a deal like that because they're, a function of the federal government. But, it's obviously going to go out to an open process and everything like that. So,
yeah, this is like the number one thing I'm like obsessed with right now is government contracting.
What about the CityCast Denver concessions car? What are we going to serve?
Right in, listeners.
Pizza?
Who would be the food provider at the CityCast Denver cart? I guess on the train.
If you guys want to write us a big enough check, I'll put a concession car on the L line since it goes right by the state studio and everything.
Okay.
Or at least advocate for it. I don't get to decide these things.
That's true. Your one vote of 15.
Your membership
Exactly.
money will go to that.
Yeah.
I mean, one vote of 15. That's the other thing is like the RTD board itself is, I would say, under threat from the state legislature, which has a bill in front of it. Right now, they're debating reform of the board.
Yep.
It seems like some people in the legislature think the whole RTD morass is maybe the board's fault. Was this conversation with Debra at all connected to the conversation around RTD reform?
Absolutely not. We are the public is right. Actually, the board is the responsible party for the results of the agency. We hire the GM and CEO to do a job. And when the agency doesn't perform well, it's on us at the end of the day. It's on me, it's on my colleagues, and it's on our former colleagues who made decisions that maybe were not the best decisions and got us into this mess. And so I think
the
that
deferred maintenance, the single lines for light rail. So when there is maintenance, they don't get slowed down like crazy.
I'll just come out and say it. Staff has been very clear to the board of directors for a few years now that we were spending more money than we were taking in. And the board of directors did not pursue a strategy did not come up with a plan for how to fix that, how to raise more revenue. And this is going back to like 2022. And so then, it's like you lose your job, you're spending down your savings with no plan to deal with that. And then the natural moment happens where we're at right now where, we don't have any more money. And so now we have to make, we've said this publicly, $200 million in cuts for 2027. And I was more furious than I have ever, when we had a budget meeting on this, I was more furious than I've ever been because this was entirely predictable. We knew this was coming.
And the board members at the time just put their heads in the sand.
Yeah.
And there was no accountability for them. I guess this bill is the accountability because there's so many people now that say the board was the problem. We need experts in there. We need someone the governor appoints is the argument.
Yeah. And I would say, the first version of accountability is we replaced 7 board members in 2024.
That's true. That's why you're there.
Yeah,
Yes.
including you.
A few of them gracefully chose not to run for re-election, and that was the right call. And so I think the effort to reform, I really think of it in terms of how do we make the board function better? And, I've come out in an amend position on this bill because I think it can get to the point where it would be good. A bad bill would be worse than the status quo. And the concern that I think a lot of us have is if they do this in a way that it's not just about modernizing the board, but it becomes about a shift in the balance of power between the cities and the suburbs, and where people don't know and don't trust how that's going to game out. I think that could be really damaging for the future of public transit. Voters and stakeholders really like to know what they're getting into when they modify a system of governance and what it's going to do to the outcomes that they get. And
unintended consequences.
100%. We could end up with a system. I mean, I'll just be blunt. Right now, Denver gets a large percentage of transit spending in the region because of the nature of being a city and because of the demand for taking the bus and taking the light rail. And a different board could decide that they want to spend all of that money somewhere else. And Denver could lose out massively.
Yeah, a board could decide to spend money on front range passenger rails projects.
Let's go Lakewood.
Chris, I got an idea to pitch you.
Okay. I have an idea too. After
you do?
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to go first?
Okay, yeah.
Apparently, Olivia and I both have our own.
I have pitches. Okay.
Proposals to fix all these problems.
I think I've pitched this before, but not directly to an RTD board member. So I'm really excited about this. Okay, so it's gonna in the short term lose money, but
Great start.
We have lots of it, so
they're already doing that. Leave me alone. I'm just being the great minds on the board.
Go on.
Okay, I'm immediately going to lose money, but I think it will eventually make money. Got to lose money to make money, whatever they say. So I think that you need to have an incentive program for riders, and you need to pay them to ride for like a month or two. Not like a lot. I mean, like, I'm not saying like pay them a lot, but give them like an incentive. So like if you ride, you get like a kickback of like $1 I don't know how much, but like you get paid each time you ride. So then you're, getting a little money, and then it becomes a habit after you do it for like 2 months. And then you're like, oh shit, I actually like taking the train, and I got paid for 2 months, and now it's actually a habit, and I'm just going to keep doing it. Boom.
That is not the worst idea I have ever heard.
See?
I'll make it one better for you.
Okay.
We have 100,000 riders every day, 100,000 people who take public transit, even now. And I do think that if we were to go to those folks and say, hey, sign up your friends, and if they use it, we'll discount your transit fares. We'll give you
the referral
credits.
bonus.
Exactly. Because most people know a lot of people, like any rider knows 10 people, 20 people who probably could take public transit some of the time, but they don't. So it's like, hey, grab your friend. If they sign up, they ride the thing. We have what's known as an account-based ticketing system now, where we actually where previously you would just buy tickets and we had no idea who you were, we actually sign people up with accounts, which you can do a lot with that, both in terms of doing things like referrals and things like, discounts and all kinds of other stuff that you see with any other.
This is literally every app, like freaking Uber Eats. It's like you get your friend to sign up, you get $15, they get $15.
Yep.
Here's my idea.
Okay.
So this is not as sexy. That's a fun idea. My idea is, what if, so Debra Johnson has had two roles, GM and CEO. What if you split those roles and perhaps split that big salary to pay two people, one who's more of an operator, an effective manager, and one that's the political figurehead whose job is to sell RTD to the people and get people excited about it?
Okay, I was kind of wondering this too. I was like, why is she doing both of those jobs? Because do you see that at a lot of places, that the general manager and the CEO are the same thing?
Chris?
So this is a bit of a sort of historical thing where traditionally in public transit agencies, going back to like the 1970s, the title for the person in charge was the general manager. And then starting around 10, 20 years ago, agencies moved toward a standard corporate structure where that person would take on the title of CEO. So there are some transit agencies that just have a CEO. There are a lot that have a general manager and CEO. And then, our sort of second in command is a CFO, a COO,
the corporate
CTO, exactly, the corporate tradition. And so I think it's sort of a legacy of that. I can't comment on what the board is thinking of doing when it comes to what we will be recruiting for. But I can say that we will be having, very serious conversations about what the role should look like going forward. That's the natural thing you do before you hire a headhunter, and really in partnership with that person to figure out, what are you hiring for?
Here's the bounty. Go out and find
Yeah.
this person. Anyway, okay. Well, we're going to keep talking about that as you all do your search, and more on the Front Range passenger rail. I'm sure soon that's heating up only more and more as the year goes on. But right now we got to go to a break and come back and talk about another one of our favorite topics, housing density. All right, we're back. Our hot topic today, Lakewood's special election on Tuesday. It's one of Denver's biggest suburbs. I saw this week it was the 5th biggest city in Colorado, Lakewood. The people of Lakewood voted on zoning. Specifically, a grassroots movement of Lakewooders organized a campaign against some changes their city council approved last year to increase housing density in a variety of ways. And this campaign won by a lot. Nearly 17,000 votes for the 4 repeal measures, and a little over 9,000 on each of the side against. Those are the folks who wanted to keep the new density rules. I think a lot of people were asking the question of why this election even happened on April 7th in the spring, when most people are not paying attention to politics. And Olivia, you were following this. Do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, well, this citizens group, City Council in 2025 put up these new zoning rules, these new zoning ordinances. And then the citizen group was not vibing with that. They did not like that. So they collected signatures to start the repeal process.
Okay.
And so they collected enough signatures, and City Council could have either repealed those ordinances, gone back to the drawing board and figured it out, or they could host a special election.
So council called for the special
Yes.
election. And did they also pick the date then?
I don't know if it's
Maybe it was just
I
the
think
soonest
it's just
possible
as
date.
soon after the signatures are collected. But yeah, so that's why it became a special election and couldn't hold off until the real election.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, because I think the speculation and the analysis I saw was this is a special election. Who's going to come out for that? Maybe older people typically are those who are most engaged in elections.
I heard it was 20% of Lakewood voters.
Interesting. For the
Which
turnout?
is yeah. And for the Lakewood mayoral, it was around 85.
Yeah.
So it's,
Interesting.
it was a very low turnout.
Chris, what did you make of the results?
It was a blowout. I'm one of the leaders of YIMBY Denver, and a very, very strong supporter of density, and we got absolutely hosed. It was brutal. A lot of my friends volunteered on that race, on that measure, and it was a meaningful setback.
So what are they saying? Why did they lose?
Well, I think it's a combination of two things. First off, the opposition really set the tone and the agenda here. The biggest mistake was not having them put it on the ballot as council last year. Or rather in 2020, they could have said, when we are doing this, when we are passing these changes, we are referring it to the ballot in 2026.
So it's not this bait and switch of we're passing it, when they probably could have assumed that this grassroots group would have formed, we saw in Littleton, of course, that did the exact same thing. They had these new gentle density measures, and then people felt blindsided and organized, and there was a lot of energy on that side because they both had their argument and they had the feeling of being wronged, which is such a big motivator.
Strong.
I think so. That's one piece of it. What I will say is this was a big win for the anti-growth people.
Yeah.
So much so that I'm honestly of the belief that even if they had referred it, even with all the extra turnout, they would have had a very hard time getting it approved by the voter, getting the statute kept in place. So, I'll say this, Denver itself is going through a conversation about this stuff right now with missing middle housing. And there's been frustration from housing activists that, this is taking too long. It's a very deliberative process. Why is it And I think this is a good reminder of why you do that at the end of the day. Because
the deliberative process.
Exactly. And being, the compromise, the being willing to really listen, because then nobody gets freaked out when it goes into place.
Yeah,
And
that's what I was hearing with like having the 4 kind of things in there. There was like a lot kind of, and most of them were kind of like nothing was really going to change. Like there was a lot of stuff that was just kind of already in the zoning code, but having them this special election vote on these 4 different things, when I was talking to some of the people on the wanting to keep the keep the zoning codes, they were like, I think it was just too much too fast. Like
Too
I think
complicated.
it just freaked people out. They were like, this is so much zoning stuff. Like, no, we don't want it.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. I'm just honestly, like Chris said, blown away by this, frankly, because I've talked to both sides. I talked to Karen Gourdet, she heads the Lakewood Citizens Alliance, one of the main big groups that was part of the repeal campaign. God, it's so, see, this is another thing. It's so confusing. Like, of course it was confusing, but I mean, they raised under $50,000 for their campaign, and the other side raised $270,000. Like they just had not the money. They were volunteer based. They had like on her chunk of it, they had like less than 100 volunteers, and they just got out there. You know, I was talking to her after the win and was like, you know, she was like, it's crazy. You know, we were just out there walking neighborhoods. She's like, we had over 900 yard signs up, which I don't know. I was honestly blown away. When I was going to turn in my ballot as a Lakewood resident, I was driving through my neighborhood and I was like, oh, there's kind of a lot of yard signs up. So
the people wanted it. I mean, it was definitely a shellacking. It was a shellacking.
It was.
Yeah, the money thing is interesting because I've had an ongoing argument with some people about, is money the key determining factor of elections? And this goes on my column. Yeah, you know who you are. This one goes on my column. This wasn't
at all. It's like, yeah, I think also it really played into, you know, I was talking to Lakewood City Council member Roger Lowe, and he was like, this really plays into people. People are resistant to change. People are afraid of change, especially in these neighborhoods. If they've generationally lived there and stuff, they just are, you know, change is scary. And it's something they can be really resistant to, especially if this is what they've known their whole life. So he was like, I think that was a perfect kind of showing of that.
Now, to your point, Paul, I'm just reminded of this and, you know, like to brag, but, you know, in my race, I raised $50,000 and my opponent raised 50 and had another 70,000 spent on his behalf. So I was more than double outspent and I beat him by 20 percentage points.
There you go.
You know, doesn't always come down to money.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, that's politics. Yeah. That's why it's interesting. Gosh, I mean, the Littleton comparison, I think, is that's what makes this a statewide issue. You know, if this is a Lakewood story for sure, but to pull back and look at the Littleton comparison, the same story played out. It was a slightly different margin of victory. The people who were opposing the changes won 55-45 in Littleton, and it was 2-1 in Lakewood. But still, that's like now 2 Denver suburbs that have had these big anti-growth, anti-change referendums. Do we need to take this more seriously on a statewide level? This sort of like status quo, maybe we prefer the sprawl over the density.
I think that a lot of people are in the suburbs for a reason. You know, I think that some people, when they move to the suburbs, they want that sprawl and they want the yard and they want the space. I live in the suburbs and that's not a reality for me because I can't afford it. So I live in an apartment. But, you know, I think that that is a reason some people do that. So I don't know. I mean, I think we heard from them in this election a lot. But
Chris, what do you take from it politically for the next campaign?
Well, I think you need to increase density in places where people want to increase density. I think we need more walkable neighborhoods in Denver. I think we need to grow our housing stock in the places where you have, you know, young, urbanist, millennials, et cetera, and take neighborhoods that have traditionally had, you know, lower density, but the politics of high density and put more housing there.
And which neighborhoods are those?
Maybe
do you want to name any of those?
I don't know. Maybe we'll talk about one in that segment a little bit
segue.
from now. Thank you.
Look at you, pro over here. That's a great segue. We're going to go into this next thing right now because that's Lakewood. But if you're a CityCast Denver neighbor, we are now entering a bonus segment for you only.
Neighbor zone.
Non-neighbors, this is where you were going to go into an ad break. Neighbors, we are about to talk about a business group in a certain neighborhood to be named that wants our help figuring out its brand identity. So if you're listening in your members-only ad-free feed, you will hear that. If you're not, sign up right now. Get the full episode, including the bonus segment, at membership.citycast.fm. And by the way, we're going to be doing it every week. So let's do it now. All right, we're back. It's the best way to end the week. Wins and fails, aka Rocky Mountain highs and lows. Each of us brought a recent local something. One we think is a win, one we think is a fail, and we're going to talk about them. Who wants to start us with a fail? Chris, I'm putting you on the spot.
Oh, this time around, I really do. So there is a proposal that had a public hearing yesterday.
Okay.
For I think it's $350 million gondola.
Yes.
In downtown. And like 5 people showed up to the hearing.
Including Paul.
And all of there. Oh my God.
If you want to hear about it, I'll tell you about it. Go
ahead. And basically we're like, I'm sorry, what the hell are you smoking? Look, I like gondolas as much as anybody else, and there are places for them. I mean, Boulder on the hill to downtown, I can kind of see it.
Idaho Springs?
Yeah.
The Mighty Argo, the company that is building the Mighty Argo gondola, which looks gorgeous.
Yeah,
Paul loves it.
There. But like, if you're talking about downtown, I forget who I was talking to about this, but like, we want people walking by the stores and like actually going in and seeing things. Riding up on a thing doesn't get you foot traffic. It doesn't get you people shopping. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I that was definitely a bit of a fail on their part.
Yeah. I think the gondola project is fascinating. I've loved following it the last 2 years. The guy who is pushing it, his name is Ryan Ross. He's a private investigator. He used to write for Westward. I think we're going to talk about this.
Multitudes. I love that.
I was there with Patty Calhoun on the other night at this thing. And so I think we're going to talk about it next week on the show. Because my favorite part of covering this event was following people out as they got frustrated and left. And then I talked to them about how they felt about it. And I got some interesting, I've been hearing from these people now too.
Oh my God.
These people who showed up who were like, wow, interesting new idea. And then totally turned on it.
No.
Anyway. Okay. Olivia, what's your fail?
My fail is just a bit of FOMO, I guess. I was in Kansas City over the past weekend, my hometown. And I walked to the liquor store by my parents' house. And there was just a plethora of THC sodas.
Okay.
There was just a plethora of them. And I guess that these were the like Delta 9 hemp-derived ones because we were on the Kansas side. But I don't know. I just feel like the offerings for THC sodas in Denver are just not as accessible and not as good. Hot take.
There's some reporting on this from Denver Post this week. I think this is getting to be a more popular segment.
It's getting to be more popular. They're trying to, right now, they can't sell them in like at a bar where they sell alcohol. They can't sell these drinks. And I really enjoy them. I think it's a nice break from drinking. And I want to see more of them in Denver. And like, I liked going to the liquor store and having like a huge selection of them. I haven't noticed a huge selection of them in Lakewood at my liquor stores. If you've got a liquor store that has a bunch of them, let me know. But I haven't seen them. So I don't know. I just felt kind of FOMO. I was like, not Kansas City becoming the weed capital. I was like, I moved to Denver. What the heck?
For innovations like this.
Yeah, for weed. But yeah, so I don't know. I was just kind of like, okay, we got some catching up to do here. So I'm interested to see.
Are you on this trend, Chris?
I am not.
No.
He gets drug tested for work.
Interestingly enough, our staff, operators, do get drug tested, and it's actually an issue because we have a lot of phenomenal people who, it's Denver, it's Colorado. God knows people should be able to have a joint on the weekend, but under federal regulations, those folks can't realistically.
They're using fake
or
pee.
risk.
No, they are. I promise.
I'm not going to speak to that portion of it, but it's definitely something that, if federal administration wants to actually improve public transit in this country, recognizing that people are going to do legal recreational drugs, they could bother to fix that regulation.
Yeah. But we could keep more talented people
True.
on staff.
Yes, we
That's
could.
Interesting.
Exactly.
That is a really interesting point.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. My fail. Okay, so I was watching this kind of bubble up last weekend. This is from the realm of politics, but there was a gubernatorial forum last Sunday. Colorado Muslim Vote is an organization, a local Muslim group here in Denver that invited Michael Bennet and Phil Weiser, the two leading Democrat candidates for governor, one of whom will likely be the next governor, to come and speak to this community about whatever they wanted. There was a Q&A, and the news that made the Denver Post this week, that I saw some like political activists upset about, was Michael Bennet bailed. Michael Bennet chose not to show up. Apparently there was some some negotiating with the moderators and the organizers about what types of questions would be asked. Having been a part of some of those negotiations, I've never not asked a question that I wanted to ask, but understanding what that is, to me, this sounds like a breakdown of communication. So a minor fail, I guess, to the organization, but mostly to Michael Bennet for not showing up and answering questions. He knew he would get asked about Gaza. He knew he would get asked about some of these really pretty important and controversial issues that Denverites really want to hear him answer. And so that was a fail, that he did not offer a transparent look at what his positions are. Not that governor has any of a role in Gaza in particular, but there's plenty of other issues. And
it's interesting because people have pretty strong feelings about Phil Weiser's opinions on Gaza.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised Michael Bennet didn't just jump on the train and be like, yeah, same.
Phil Weiser, he is the son of Holocaust survivors.
Yeah.
He's someone who's talked about his relationship with Israel, a personal relationship. And yeah, he did get that question. And I agree, Olivia. If I was Michael Bennet, I would have taken the opportunity to distinguish myself from my rival.
Also, to play devil's advocate slightly, I guess, how many effing debates are these guys doing all the time? How many forums are they doing all the time?
Yeah.
He missed one. Okay.
That's the other thing is,
I'm not here to be Michael Bennett's bodyguard defender guy, but I don't know. I mean, are they really expected to come to all of them? Is it going to be news every time they can't come to one? I feel like it's a lot. They also have jobs.
There's politicking going on. People are spinning this all which way. But yeah, he's also currently a sitting senator doing Senate stuff.
So I don't know.
I mean, I'll just say this. One of the things that I've always appreciated about Michael Bennet is that he doesn't bullshit. And he will tell you to your face if he doesn't agree with what you think. So, if he felt like, going into that room, that he was going to get the kind of fire, and the politically smart option was going to be to, tell those people what they thought, I can understand why he might have decided, you know what, I'm not going to go lie to them. And I don't want to get people throwing rocks at my head. So, I appreciate him for having a nuanced outlook on this and for being willing to take these issues seriously. Both of them are Jewish. It's Passover. And I think that, these issues are really hard for those of us in the Jewish community right now.
Yeah. Well, I highly recommend reading the article. We'll link to it. I wish I could have shared the comments, but Weiser's response to the question of is what's happening in Gaza the last few years genocide? Very interesting response. That link is in the show notes. Let's talk about wins. Olivia, go first.
My win is this video that I saw all over Twitter and on Barstool, which, yes, I'm still looking at it.
You used to be bigger into Barstool, and now you're less into
when I
it.
was in college, I was definitely looking at Barstool, and now I'm just and still looking at it. So anyway, but
Chris and I are like,
they're like,
no
what's
idea.
that? Anyway,
what's going on?
So there's this video from a Rockies game, which the Rockies are currently on their longest active MLB winning streak. Go off.
Did they get a third one?
I don't know.
Okay,
Go
ahead.
Google that.
Go ahead.
But anyway, I'm obsessed with this video. I've seen it like a couple times in other sports things, but it's like all these guys on the upper deck, like taking their shirts off and like spinning it around, like spinning their shirts around. And then like all the other guys go and join them and like keep doing it. And they just created this giant crowd of guys just going like, woo!
The shirtless dudes.
And I just thought, I was like, oh, look at these guys having community. Like, oh, like boys, like being friends, like boys, friendship. It's hard to make friends as guys. So I don't know. I just thought it was really funny. And like, I'm easily entertained. And I was just like, yeah, look at the Rockies fans. I don't know. I love a super fan for anything. So I was just highly entertained by it. So it's a win. Go Rockies.
I've seen some photos of that. It is good.
I liked it. I thought it was cute.
Chris, what's your win?
Yeah, so I'm going to share a win, and in doing so, actually break some major news on the podcast that I don't think has been covered yet.
Wow.
So my win is that the state has announced that they have reached agreements for the joint service 3 trains a day. This was in the paper yesterday. Between us and the Joint Service Authority and BNSF, and to run. Let's just say negotiating with railroads is very, very hard. And a lot of people I know never thought they would get a deal, never thought they would come close to actually getting this done. And they pulled it off. That's not the news. The news is that last night on the operations committee, Lisa Kaufman, who works for the governor, works on this project, presented actual numbers on how much it's going to cost. And it's the first time that those have been presented in a public meeting.
So this is the Front Range passenger rail.
This is the 3 trains a day, the starter service that
could lead to the dream, the COCO.
The ballot measure this fall. Okay. Exactly. I think they'd still call it COCO, but it would be like
COCO 1.0
Light.
COCO Light, COCO
exactly.
1.0.
COCO Light.
COCO Light.
I like that.
Skinny COCO.
So
go on, Chris.
We're going to be asked to vote on this money later this year. And what they presented was, for the first time, sharing what those numbers are. And I will tell you them
and they are.
now. So the cost to RTD would be $156 million up front, with about a $10 million annual cost. The cost to the state would be about $176 million, with about a $10 million annual cost, and then some additional funding from the Clean Transit Enterprise for about $10 million a year. Those numbers are dramatically lower than what was presented in our peak service study and in what was presented a year ago in the original sort of presentation we got on Front Range passenger rail. And I think I can say that because they negotiated a really good deal.
Okay, I was going to say, did they buy a cheap train? Are we in danger?
No, it's not a cheap train. I was beyond impressed by the work that Lisa did, that Brendan Schaefer, her staffer, did. This is what it looks like when government does things right, and this is a really solid proposal. So
that's interesting.
Go off, Lisa.
Well, we'll dig into that. We'll talk more and we'll follow up. But that's breaking news. Hey, enjoy.
Yeah,
listeners only here. Okay, my win. And I will close us out. My win goes to Blucifer. I got 2 Blucifer things to share. Both are awesome. One is for Mallory Hart, a local artist who a few months ago DM'd me on Instagram after we talked about Blucifer, and I shared some photos. And she asked my permission to paint a painting based on my photo of Blucifer's butthole to give to her friend. And I saw that photo today on Instagram, and it is beautiful. And
it's like gilded.
Such a cool thing to happen.
It is. It's gorgeous. A lot of gold gilding on it. Beautiful, ornate frame.
Very flattered. Thank you, Mallory, for sharing that. And then the other one is another Blucifer thing. There's a local band called Ritmo Cascabel who does what they call Cumbia Delica.
Ooh.
And they had a song called Blucifer that came out last year, tribute to the guy. Very tropical vibe, great beat. They yell Blucifer during it. It was a cool song. I want to play it here at the end of the episode so y'all can hear it. It was great. Local band, Blucifer. So good. Hey, that's the show. Olivia, Chris, thanks so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. Our producers this week were Olivia Jewell Love, Adrian Gonzalez, and me, Paul Karolyi. Peyton Garcia and Natalia Aldana write our morning newsletter. Bree Davies is our host. Our music is by Los Mocachetes with additional mixing by Tyler Lindgren. Our ad music is by Cuba Quartet from Epidemic Sounds via Getty Images. If you haven't already, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at CityCast Denver, and tell Sal Pace is running the Front Range. Tell Sal Pace about us. I'd love to talk to you, Sal. We've never met. You can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Denver neighbor today at membership.citycast.fm. And bonus segments, don't miss another one. Sign up for that daily newsletter I mentioned and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. See you next week.